Oftentimes you hear people speak about the troops and their bravery, but what about the families and what the families of the troops go through, and the stresses involved in being a military family? I would like to take this time to explain to you a little bit about the stresses in the life of being a military family. To get my information for this resource, I took a couple different avenues. I got online and looked at academic journals and looked at news articles from families that have been through the situations and from kind of a psychological point of view of what a military family goes through. However, I also did a couple of interviews with personal family members of my own that have gone through or are currently going through the situation of being a military family. I want to cover points from normal everyday stresses when the whole family's home, or when the troop is deployed, and even their return home. A military family is no different from any other family with stresses. They have their normal everyday stresses, and then you add on the stress of them being in the military or having a loved one in the military. The normal stresses include the obvious of a career, finding education further in their education, childcare, and even finding education for their children. However, according to Amy Drummond from an article she wrote on military families and their daily stress, it is also said that an added stress is that the whole family is unofficially holds the rank of their service member that's in their family. To show you a means of this, this picture is drawn by a little boy whose dad is in the Army. The picture shows what he feels like his rank is, and the kind of background in the picture was to just, ask him, what do you see yourself being, what is your role in life, explaining kids' terms, obviously, and this is what he drew from that, him in the Army with his hat and everything, and then he drew it for his dad, who was in the Army. Oftentimes, with the stress, the family is not required, but kind of expected to uphold a certain behavior that goes along with the ranks that their loved one is in the military. Now you have the stresses of being a military family, and then you add on the stress of being deployed or having a family member deployed. Deployment is not only stressful for the family back home, but for the troop as well. One of the stresses